Okay, everyone. In this video, we're going to be looking at Dee's arrival in the story Everyday Use by Alice Walker, and we're going to consider both her characterization and her relationship with the quilts. Dee and Maggie get into a kind of subtle argument or debate over which of them should receive the quilts. Although Maggie is willing to allow Dee to take them, the mother eventually comes to the conclusion that Maggie should receive the quilts instead of Dee, as Dee goes around the house asking for the top of a butter churn, which is a kind of implement that you use to make butter, and a variety of other things that she finds around the house. The first thing that I'd like you to do is to take a look at the story from the place where we left off, around page 4, the bottom of page 4. Try to create a list of all the things that Dee does that are a little bit strange to you, things that maybe you don't quite understand. Maybe you don't know why she's doing something, or what she does seems odd or unusual. Try to collect together a list of all those things. When you're satisfied, when you have that list, try to explain these moments and explore what they imply about Dee's character. Can you think about why she's doing what she's doing? All right, now that we're back, I'm going to read certain sections of the story, highlighting moments when Dee's behavior might seem a little bit strange, and then I'll present to you my interpretations of those moments. We'll also take a look at the symbolism of the quilts, what the quilts represent in the story, how we can interpret the symbol of the quilts, and then how we can use that symbol of the quilts to explore the subject of heritage or tradition or family. You recall that we've used symbolism before, analyzing symbolism to find the message or the argument, the theme of a story. So we're taking those discussions of characterization that we had earlier on in the semester and our discussions about symbolism, and we're working through them together to try to use them as tools to find the theme of this work or the argument that the author is trying to make. At the top of page 4, Dee arrives home, and she greets her mother by using a strange expression, wasuzotiano. She's greeting her mother using a kind of foreign expression. Mother doesn't understand it, and that's the reason that Dee uses this expression. She wants to emphasize her difference from her mother, the fact that she knows something that her mother doesn't, or that she's connected to a heritage of her people from their original nation and their original continent that her mother has lost. Now, she introduces her boyfriend or her husband. Assalamu alaikum. He moves to hug Maggie, but she falls back right up against the back of my chair. So we learn something about both of these characters, Dee and her boyfriend. Although they are proponents of racial justice, they want to see equal rights, they want to achieve equal rights, they don't actually care about individual people. This man sees Maggie, should be able to tell that she's afraid, she's timid, but he ignores that and goes to hug her. The mother then says, I feel her trembling there, and when I look up, I see the perspiration falling from her chin. So the mother can tell that Maggie is unsettled and scared, but her sister and the sister's husband or boyfriend don't care. Dee then says, don't get up, to her mother. She's dismissing her mother. It's as if it's not even important enough to really greet her or hug her. She's saying, just sit there. I don't need you. Then she does something strange. She takes out a Polaroid from her car and begins taking pictures. She stoops down quickly and lines up picture after picture of me sitting there in front of the house with Maggie cowering behind me. She never takes a shot without making sure our house is included. When a cow comes nibbling around the edge of the yard, she snaps it at me and Maggie and the house. Then she puts the Polaroid in the back seat of the car and comes up and kisses me on the forehead. So she doesn't greet her mother. Before she really greets her mother with that kiss, she starts taking photographs of the house, her mother, the cow. Remember that the house is in a state of disrepair. It's broken down and collapsing. Maggie here is revealing that she wants to take these photographs. I think we can intuit, we can interpret this as saying she wants to take these photographs in order to show them off. She's going to brag about her origins. Remember that she was incredibly ashamed of where she came from, that she would never bring her friends to this place because she was ashamed of her mother, ashamed of her poverty. Now she's doing something different. She wants to have those pictures. She wants to be able to show those pictures to other people. And that's more important to her than her actual family, greeting them or saying hello to them. The reason for that, I think, is that now she wants to show off where she came from because she is successful today. She wants to take these photographs of her fat mother who's sitting there who can barely get out of her chair, her wounded sister, and her home that's falling apart, or her childhood home that's falling apart, so she can say to her friends, look at where I came from. Look at how little I had, and look at what I've made of myself today. Now I have gold bracelets and pretty dresses. I own a car. I'm married. I'm intelligent and educated. Look at how successful I am, even though I came from all of this. I came from nothing. So she doesn't care about her family, and she uses them as a tool to make herself look better by making them seem worthless. Assalamu alaikum comes up and tries to greet Maggie. Maggie, we learn, has a limp handshake, and it's probably as cold as a fish despite the sweat, and she keeps trying to pull it back. So Maggie, again, using this example, is timid, she's afraid, she's weak, she's limp as a fish. And Assalamu alaikum doesn't care about this. He doesn't care about the fact that Maggie is shy or she's distressed. He uses a kind of special handshake that she doesn't understand, a greeting that she doesn't understand. Dee is then greeted by her mother. Her mother says, well, I say, Dee, no, mama, she says, not Dee. Wangaro Liwanika Kamanjo. So she's taken on a new name. She's embraced a new heritage. She says, this name is what I want to be known by. Not your name, not the name that was given to me by my parents and that I inherited from Grandma Dee and her mother, who was also named Dee. No, I want to take a new name from a culture that I want to say is mine. But we know that's not really her heritage. You know as well as me that you were named after your Aunt Deesy. I said, Deesy is my sister. She named Dee. We called her Big Dee after Dee was born. So she rejects her actual heritage because she likes a different heritage that is not her own. She's taken it and tried to make it her own, but it's not really hers. And she shows her mother just what she thinks about her mother and her family, her aunt, and the other members of her family, her grandmother and her great-grandmother. She shows her that she doesn't care about any of those people. She only cares about the new identity, the new heritage that she takes for her own. As we continue the story, we see that Dee is incredibly entitled. She comes into her mother's home, looks around, and then starts asking for things. Right? She just looks around the house and says, I want the top of that butter churn. Oh, I knew there was something I wanted to ask you about. I want that butter dish. The churn top is what I need. Oh, I want these photographs. And then eventually, oh, I want these quilts. So think about what that tells us about Dee's character. Dee is someone who has everything. She's educated, she's wealthy, she has a nice car, and she goes to the home of her family members, people who have almost nothing. Their home is falling apart. And the first thing that she thinks about is, what can I take from these people? What can I have? She always wants more. Now, there are good things about Dee's character. She is successful. She did make something of herself coming from nothing. She's intelligent, refined, she's wealthy, she's successful. And she's never satisfied. She wants to make a better life for herself. She's always striving to make a better life for herself. But we also know that she's greedy. That lack of satisfaction is also a negative thing. No matter how much she has, she always wants more, even if she has to take it from people who have nothing. She visits them here only because she wants something. She doesn't care about greeting her family or listening to them or speaking with them. What she really wants is things. I want the tasher too, she says. Here, Dee comes home to remind her family how much power she has over them, to remind her sister, who was never able to get anything, who feels like her sister was always blessed in the world, that Dee was always blessed in the world, that Dee can take whatever she wants. Now, Maggie responds to this request, and I want the dasher too. I want that and that and that and that. I want everything that you've got. So I can put it on my mantelpiece. I can show it off. I can show it off to my friends to show them where I came from, how much I overcame. Maggie says Aunt Dee's first husband whittled the dash. His name was Henry, but they called him Stash. So in this moment, she's showing that she actually understands the significance of these items. She knows what they mean. For Dee, they're just objects that she can show off. But Maggie cares about the real history, the real heritage of her family. Wangaro, or Dee, just laughs that off and says, I can use the churn top as a centerpiece for the alcove table. It's just display. It's just external. She doesn't care about her actual heritage. She just wants to appropriate it and take it all for herself so that she can show off. After dinner, Dee went to the trunk at the foot of my bed and started rifling through it. So Dee doesn't care about her family at all. Right? She doesn't ask. Right? Think about your adult children if you have them, or if you were to sort of walk into your parents' homes and just start rifling through their things without asking. Dee thinks that she has a right to everything that her family owns, even though she's ignored them and throughout her entire life has told them, I don't want your heritage. I hate it and I hate you. I want to see your home burned. She never wanted the quilts before, but now that she can use them to show off, now she wants them. Mama, Wangaros said, sweet as a bird, can I have these old quilts? I heard something fall in the kitchen, and a minute later the kitchen door slammed. We learn here that Maggie is emotionally affected. She's distraught by this request, or at this request, because those quilts were promised to her. They were given to her by her grandmother. She helped her grandmother to knit them. She learned how to knit from her grandmother. So she has this intimate connection to her real and true heritage. Dee comes in and just says, well, she asks, but she's not really asking. She thinks that she deserves them. She thinks that she's entitled to these quilts, just like she's entitled to everything else. That's why she just goes rummaging about in her parents' or her mother's belongings. And the mother tries to convince her not to take these quilts that were sewn together by previous generations, her grandmother. The quilts here we see represent that connection to the family. On the one hand, Maggie has a real, honest connection with her family because she helped to create those quilts. She's part of that successive series of generations. Dee wants to appropriate them from herself. So the quilts symbolize the family and its traditions. Dee wants to display them as a curiosity, as a conversation piece. But Maggie wants to use them. She wants to use them as her grandmother did. She wants to use them as her great-grandmother did. So she's taking up that family tradition. She's taking up the symbol of her family tradition and respecting it because she's using it in the way that they would have. Maggie flees. She runs away because she thinks that her sister Dee is just going to get the quilts, just like she's gotten everything else. And Dee thinks the same thing. But her mother says, I promise to give them to Maggie for when she marries John Thomas. Dee is shocked by this. She gasped like a bee had stung her. So for the first time in her life, it seems, she's being told no. Maggie can't appreciate these quilts, she said. She'd probably be backward enough to put them to everyday use, to actually use them. So we see this roiling hatred and greed on the part of Dee. Dee, who has everything, can't let her sister have just this one small thing. Dee then looked at me with hatred. You just will not understand. The point is these quilts, these quilts. She wants them because they were made by her grandmother. She wants them because Maggie wants them. and she can't let her sister have anything. And she wants them because, well, they're a connection to her heritage, but not the heritage that she always wanted, a fake one, but a real one that she can show off. She doesn't care about that actual connection. She just cares about using them to show off. Now, Maggie comes in and shows how willing she is to be deferential. She says Dee can have them, like someone used to never winning anything or have anything reserved for her. I can remember Grandma Dee without the quilts. So she's willing to give them up. She's at peace with having almost nothing. But the mother looks at her and says, you deserve them. This one time, I am going to give you what you want rather than giving Dee what she wants. Take one or two of the others, I said to Dee. You just don't understand, she said, as Maggie and I came to the car. What don't I understand? I wanted to know. Your heritage, she said. And then she turned to Maggie, kissed her, and said, you ought to try to make something of yourself too, Maggie. It's really a new day for us. But from the way you and Mama still lived, you'd never know about it. So she's dismissive and disrespectful, telling her family that you aren't living your lives in the right way. Now, on the one hand, there's something true in what she's saying. Dee is embracing a new way of living. She's achieving success that her family never could have in the past. But it has also not brought her peace or satisfaction. She always wants more. She's never satisfied. And she's dismissive and disrespectful. She spits in her family's faces. Now, there's a kind of irony here, because Dee is the one who has rejected her actual real heritage. She's the one who doesn't know anything about her grandmother, her family, the quilts that they made. She just wants them to show off. And she's embraced a fake heritage. She's taken on new heritage that's not really her own. And she's the one who's now saying, you don't appreciate your heritage. The heritage that Dee was always trying to escape, that she was always saying that she hated and wanted to replace with a new one and has replaced with a new one. The end of the story shows the completed character arc for the mother. After we watched the car dust settle, I asked Maggie to bring me a dip of snuff, and then the two of us just sat there enjoying until it was time to go into the house and go to bed. At the beginning of the story, the mother had a dream of being reconnected with her daughter, but the only way she thought that she could achieve that was by becoming the person that her daughter wanted. Right? I wish that I was more beautiful. I wish that I was more intelligent. I wish that I was 100 pounds lighter. I wish that I was less masculine. Not because I want these things, but because that is what my daughter wants me to be. And I want to have a relationship with my daughter. Now she realizes I shouldn't have to become someone that I'm not. If Dee can't accept me for who I am, then that's her problem. So she, at this end of the story, sits down, recognizes what she truly values, her heritage, her connection with her past. She isn't like her daughter. She doesn't want to be something more than she is. She doesn't have that drive to become successful. Those are good things, but it's not who she is. She's no longer going to be ashamed of who she is. Now, we have a complex presentation of these two daughters and these two ways of life. There are problems with both of them. Maggie is scarred. She's like a kicked dog, her mother says. And showing kindness to her is like showing kindness to a dog that's been run over by a car. The dog is going to die. There's no saving it. And showing kindness to it, trying to help it, is just going to make it suffer longer. And yet, she's at peace with her pain. She's connected to her past, and she's satisfied with what she has. She doesn't need to be constantly looking for more. Dee is successful. She's wealthy, she's educated, she's beautiful, she has nice clothing and a good home, a boyfriend, but she's never satisfied. And on the one hand, that means she's always striving for more. She always wants better for herself and for her people. But she hates who she actually is. She hates her heritage, the real heritage, not the one that she's taken on for herself. And she can never have enough. She'll always want just a little bit more. She can never be at peace. Neither of them has a perfect life. They have different visions of who they should be, about the lives they should lead. and their relationship with either their heritage or a kind of created heritage that they take on. But neither of them is perfect, and neither of them is going to live a completely perfect life. In the oral presentation assignment, it's up to you to start thinking about which of these sisters you believe is going to live a more fulfilling life. One of them has tremendous material success and is never satisfied. Another one is scarred and broken, like a dog that's been run over by a car. But she's satisfied with what she has in life. All she needs to bring her joy is a quilt. Well, Dee can have everything in the world and still want more. Those oral presentations offer you the chance to think about what a fulfilling life actually is and what it means. What I'd like you to do is to take a look at the assignment instructions for the oral presentation. Use what you've learned in these video clips as a basis for the arguments you're going to make.